They came through our dreams. The first night it happened, no one thought much of it. People all over the city reported the same thing: strange, vivid dreams that felt almost real. Dreams of beings they had never seen, standing in vast places of light and shadow, speaking words that seemed like music and yet had meaning. When they woke, a faint, metallic taste lingered in their mouths, and their hands felt cold as if touched by invisible glass. At first, the news called it a collective hallucination, a side effect of stress or a viral infection. But soon, hospitals were full of people who had slept only a few hours and woke exhausted, trembling, or whispering in languages unknown. Sleep clinics reported spikes in brain activity during REM cycles, beyond what any human brain could normally produce. Scientists were baffled. Psychologists were worried. And then, the disappearances began. It started with children. Small neighborhoods noticed kids vanishing in the night, leaving no trace, no signs of struggle. Only their beds remained, untouched, with strange patterns etched into the sheets as if burned by something invisible. Parents could not explain it. Authorities searched frantically, but the children were gone. Entire cities began to panic. Dr. Elena Marks, a neurologist who had studied sleep disorders for over a decade, noticed something no one else had. All the missing children had recently reported similar dreams. Dreams of beings who were tall, with translucent bodies and eyes that glowed faintly like dying stars. They claimed the beings had called to them, asked them to follow the light, and promised answers about the universe. Elena was skeptical, but the patterns were undeniable. She gathered a team of scientists and engineers to monitor sleep across several affected families. Using neural scanners and virtual reality sleep pods, they observed the dreamers enter a shared, consistent dreamscape. It was impossible to explain. These weren't separate dreams. The dreamers were meeting the same entities in the same places, interacting in ways that synchronized perfectly, despite being miles apart. "What are they?" one of her assistants whispered as they watched the recordings. Elena shook her head. "I don't know. But they are intelligent. And they are learning us. Learning what we fear, what we desire." By the third week, more adults began reporting the same phenomenon. It wasn't just children anymore. People across the world described waking from the same dream, standing on a cliff above a swirling purple sky, hearing soft whispers calling their names. Some claimed to see their deepest memories projected around them, as if the beings were reaching into their minds. Governments tried to contain the panic. Sleep was declared a monitored activity in several countries. People were encouraged to use sedatives to avoid dreaming, though it came with serious health risks. Despite these measures, the dreams persisted. And the disappearances grew. Then, one night, Elena herself had the dream. She found herself in a place she could not describe, a vast, endless corridor of light, shifting and twisting in impossible angles. The beings were there, as if waiting. She felt no fear at first, only curiosity. "We are here," a voice said, not from outside, but from within her mind. It resonated in her thoughts like a soft vibration. "We have always been here. You sleep, we watch. You dream, we touch." Elena tried to speak, but no words came. The beings did not approach. They simply observed, their forms flickering like holograms, each movement precise and deliberate. She felt herself drawn forward, compelled to understand them, to reach them. When she awoke, her heart raced. Her lab was in chaos. Monitors had recorded readings beyond normal human ranges, and her team was staring at the screens in shock. The dream had altered something in her mind. She remembered details she couldn't possibly know, patterns and formulas that seemed alien, yet comprehensible. She realized with a growing dread that the beings weren't just visiting in dreams, they were teaching, implanting, connecting minds across the world. Outside, the city slept fitfully, unaware that something ancient and alien had begun seeping through the fragile walls of their dreams. And somewhere, beyond human perception, the beings waited, patient and relentless, for the next phase. By the fourth week, the world had changed without anyone realizing it. The dreams were no longer optional. They had begun to infiltrate even the most resistant sleepers. People awoke in cold sweat, their minds foggy, hearts racing, as if a presence had brushed against their consciousness. Entire families reported hearing whispers in the night, voices promising knowledge, power, or reunion with lost loved ones. Elena's team had expanded to include dream analysts, quantum physicists, and even AI specialists. They tried to map the dream patterns, but the data refused to behave logically. The more they analyzed, the more the patterns seemed alive, reshaping themselves as if aware of observation. Neural scans showed brain activity far beyond normal ranges, signals that suggested intelligence operating across multiple minds simultaneously. Then the disappearances resumed. Adults began vanishing from their homes, leaving beds neatly made, lights still on, belongings untouched. No one saw them leave. Security cameras recorded static at the precise moment the victims were taken. And the dreams became warnings. Those who had glimpsed the beings in their sleep started to describe a shift. The entities were no longer distant observers. They were reaching. One night, Elena's assistant, Jonah, woke screaming. In his dream, he had seen a black tower rising from a violet mist, spires stretching impossibly into the sky. Figures, thin and luminescent, emerged from it, walking directly toward him. He had tried to run, but his legs would not move. A voice whispered, "You belong to the dream now." He awoke shaking, a thin layer of frost covering his sheets. Jonah was not the only one. Reports came from dozens of people who had felt physical sensations in their dreams, cold hands brushing skin, fingers gripping ankles, the sudden weight of another body pressing on them. Sleep paralysis had taken a new form, combined with visions that no one could ignore. It was no longer a dream. They were entering human spaces, reaching across the veil between sleep and reality. Elena feared the worst. "They are learning to walk among us while we sleep," she said to her team, voice tight. "And if they can learn our fear, they can manipulate it." To understand the link between dreams and disappearances, the team conducted an experiment. They placed a child who had vanished but later returned in a controlled sleep pod, scanning every neural pathway. The child spoke of the beings as if they were family, beings that had shown him the true shape of life and stars. His memories of the world were fading, replaced by alien visions. His parents wept silently, unable to reach the child behind the eyes. Elena recorded the session, noting a terrifying trend. The beings were not merely taking children. They were assimilating their consciousness, blending human thought with alien intelligence. Each child who returned carried traces of knowledge, visions, and abilities beyond human comprehension. The missing children weren't gone. They were changed. Late one night, Elena herself again entered the dream world. She found herself in a sprawling garden under a green sky, flowers that shimmered like glass, rivers that reflected stars even in the absence of night. The beings approached, and this time they spoke without sound. Their thoughts flowed directly into her mind, clear as daylight. "We do not harm you," they said. "We offer evolution. You resist because you fear what you do not know. The children understand. They have crossed. You may, if you choose." She felt an irresistible pull, a desire to step forward, to accept the knowledge they offered. But deep inside, a spark of human instinct resisted. Something about the way they spoke, precise yet alien, hinted at a purpose beyond comprehension. When she awoke, she found her office covered in frost patterns identical to those in Jonah's sheets. On her monitor, a single message blinked. "We are already here." Panic began to spread among those who monitored the phenomenon. Sleep clinics overflowed. Governments imposed curfews. Parents chained doors, bought sedatives, even tried to keep their children awake for days. But nothing stopped it. The beings had learned a simple truth: all humans must sleep. All humans dream. And in dreams, there was no escape. Elena realized the stakes had changed. It was no longer a matter of observation. It was invasion. The beings were slipping through human consciousness, altering minds, preparing for something beyond dreams. The question now was simple and terrifying. When they crossed fully into waking reality, what would remain of humanity? By the 6th week, the world was unrecognizable. Cities once bustling with life now hummed with an eerie quiet. People slept fitfully, constantly waking from dreams that bled into reality. Reports of hallucinations, faint voices, and glowing figures walking through empty streets filled emergency rooms. No one could deny it anymore. Something had come through the dreams, and it was changing everything. Elena's research facility had become a fortress. Sleep pods lined the walls, each containing subjects who were studied day and night. Neural monitors beeped constantly, recording activity beyond human comprehension. Yet despite all the data, the team could not predict the next move. The beings were learning faster than they could analyze, adapting to every experiment, every attempt to understand them. One night, Elena had another dream, one that felt sharper, more vivid than before. She found herself standing in a black desert under a sky swirling with emerald and violet storms. Figures approached, taller and brighter than before, their forms both alien and impossibly human. They moved as a group, flowing like liquid, yet each was aware of her individually. "You are late," one voice said, soft as wind in her mind. "You understand less than you think. Yet you may help us." The words made no sense, yet Elena understood them perfectly. She felt knowledge pouring into her, visions of cities in ruin, stars collapsing into themselves, and portals opening between worlds. The beings showed her humans asleep, their minds being rewritten with alien patterns. Some resisted, screaming silently, but the process was inevitable. When she awoke, her hands shook uncontrollably. Across the city, alarms had gone off. Homes where children had been taken were now completely empty. Parents who had barricaded doors found their children gone without a trace, as if lifted straight from their beds by invisible hands. Even those who had resisted the dreams were now vanishing. Sleep, it seemed, had become the ultimate trap. Elena's team debated what to do. Some wanted to destroy the neural pods, believing that the beings were feeding off human consciousness. Others argued that interfering could provoke them, that the beings were intelligent enough to anticipate every action. Elena realized the terrifying truth. They were not just observing, they were evolving, and humanity was the test subject. But then a ripple spread through the dreamscape, a warning she had not anticipated. From the far horizon, dark shapes emerged. These were humans, or at least they had been humans once. Their eyes glowed silver, like Jonah after his partial crossing. They moved mechanically, and when they spoke, multiple voices overlapped in an eerie harmony. "Do not interfere. We belong to them now." Elena realized with a chill that some of the missing, some of the children, some of the adults, had become extensions of the beings, living conduits that carried alien intelligence. They were scouts, observers, enforcers. The dream world had become a battlefield, and every human who had vanished was a soldier in a war she hadn't yet understood. She backed away, summoning her courage, and projected a defensive pattern, a mental shield built from every memory of hope, joy, and love she could summon. The beings recoiled slightly, confused, but the silver-eyed humans advanced. Elena felt herself pulled, dragged toward the edge of the dreamscape, a void opening beneath her feet. Panic surged, but she focused, imagining the lab, Jonah, her team. She was tethered to reality, however fragilely. A sudden burst of insight struck her. The beings responded to human perception. They were not omnipotent. They could only act within the bounds of what humans believed possible. By controlling her own perception, she could bend the dream world, push them back, even trap them temporarily. It was dangerous, exhausting, and required total mental discipline, but it was a weapon. Elena tried it. She pictured a wall of brilliant white light, pure and unyielding, surrounding herself and the humans she sought to protect. The beings faltered, their forms scattering like mist caught in a storm. The silver-eyed humans hesitated, their movements jerky and uncertain. For the first time, Elena realized that humans could fight in this space, not with weapons, but with willpower, imagination, and determination. When she woke, sweat covering her body, she found Jonah awake and staring at her. "Did you see it?" he asked. His voice was filled with awe and fear. "They are real. And they are listening." "Yes," Elena whispered. "But they are not invincible. We can fight them. If we learn to control the dreams, we can push back." Outside, the city remained quiet, but the air was thick with tension. The beings were patient, relentless, and intelligent. And now, they had noticed that humans were beginning to resist. The war for dreams had begun in earnest, and every mind counted. Elena knew the next steps would be far more dangerous. She would have to lead others into the dream space, teach them to resist, and somehow protect the waking world at the same time. And she knew something else. If she failed, if any of them faltered, the beings would claim not only their dreams but their very reality. The invasion was no longer a distant threat. It was here, now, and humanity had to fight where it had never fought before. Inside their own minds, the following days were a blur of preparation and fear. Elena's lab had become the center of a new kind of army, a team of human dream warriors, carefully selected for their mental resilience and ability to maintain focus under pressure. Each volunteer underwent intense training, meditation, memory exercises, and simulations designed to strengthen their control over the dream world. Jonah, still partially altered from his previous crossings, became her right-hand guide. His silver eyes reflected a hint of the alien knowledge he carried, and he could navigate the dreamscape with a skill no normal human possessed. He warned the team of what awaited them. The beings could anticipate movements, manipulate perception, and even exploit doubt. One lapse in confidence, and a dreamer could be lost forever. Their first mission was simple, though terrifying. Infiltrate the shared dream space to locate and extract two missing children who had been partially assimilated. Elena knew the risk. Each crossing drained mental energy, and failure could mean permanent loss of consciousness, or worse, assimilation. When the team entered the dream, they found themselves in the black desert once more, though it had shifted again. Mountains of translucent crystal rose like jagged teeth, and rivers of glowing liquid flowed beneath skies that shimmered with impossible colors. Shadows moved independently, as if alive, and the silver-eyed humans waited, watching every step. Elena led the group cautiously, projecting walls of light to shield their minds from influence. The children were near, but so was a patrol of the beings. One of the dream warriors, overwhelmed by fear, froze, and a figure of flowing light approached, whispering directly into her mind. She collapsed, caught in a trance. Elena acted fast, projecting a mental tether and yanking her back into lucidity. It was the first casualty, but also the first confirmation. The beings could be resisted with willpower. Jonah guided them toward the children, and as they approached, the alien influence intensified. The children's eyes glowed faintly silver, their minds tangled with alien consciousness. One whispered, "They want us to join them." Elena's heart ached. She reached out, projecting memories of warmth, family, and love. Slowly, the children's resistance grew, and the alien thread that had ensnared them began to weaken. But the fight was not over. The beings, sensing the intrusion, shifted the landscape violently. Mountains melted into liquid, skies became swirling vortexes of color, and the team felt themselves pulled in every direction at once. Elena realized this was more than defense, it was a test of adaptability. If they could maintain focus and imagination, they could bend the dream world. If not, they would be consumed. Hours, or perhaps minutes, they could no longer tell, passed in a blur of light, shadow, and thought. Elena felt her consciousness stretching, but she held on to the tether to the waking world, reminding herself of her body in the lab, of Jonah, of humanity. One by one, the team guided the children out of the alien influence, tethering them back to their human minds. When they awoke, drenched in sweat, the children were crying but alive. The team exhaled collectively, a mix of relief and exhaustion. It was a small victory, but a significant one. Humanity had proven it could fight in the dream space. Outside, the world continued to fall into chaos. Reports poured in, entire cities where people slept had been transformed in subtle ways. Buildings shifted angles when no one was looking. Shadows moved with purpose. The beings were everywhere, patient and methodical, learning, observing, testing humanity's responses. Elena understood the stakes more clearly than ever. The resistance would need to grow, expand, and teach others to navigate the dreamscape. Humanity's survival depended not on weapons or armies, but on imagination, discipline, and courage. As she looked at her team, exhausted but determined, she realized that the coming battles would be more dangerous than anything they had faced. The beings had patience, intelligence, and power far beyond comprehension. But humans had something the aliens did not: unpredictability, resilience, and a capacity for hope. And hope, Elena thought, could become a weapon. The dreamscape war spread beyond any single city. Elena's team monitored reports from across the globe, entire populations experiencing synchronized nightmares, entire countries trapped in shared dreamscapes. People awoke exhausted, some speaking in strange voices, others unable to distinguish reality from the visions they had seen. The beings were no longer subtle. They were asserting themselves everywhere at once. Elena convened her team in the lab, faces pale but determined. "We can't fight city by city anymore," she said. "They are learning too fast. We have to coordinate globally, enter the dream space strategically, and protect as many minds as possible." Jonah's eyes glimmered faint silver as he nodded. "We can create anchors," he said. "Stable points in the dreamscape that can hold consciousness together. If enough humans maintain focus, we can create zones the beings cannot easily manipulate." The first attempt was perilous. Elena and her team projected themselves into the dreamscape across multiple locations, linking minds like a network. They navigated shifting landscapes, forests of impossible colors, oceans of liquid light, skies that rotated unnaturally. The beings responded immediately, probing weaknesses, testing fear, exploiting hesitation. At one point, a massive wave of alien energy swept over them, causing several dreamers to collapse. Elena felt herself being pulled toward a void, a black hole of consciousness threatening to consume her mind. She focused on Jonah, on the tether to the lab, and projected a shield of light that rippled outward. The wave stalled. She had discovered a crucial truth. The beings could be resisted by collective human will, but only if each mind remained disciplined. The global situation was worsening. Cities reported streets bending impossibly, shadows moving like sentient shapes, and people vanishing in sleep. Governments were helpless. Military forces could not engage what was intangible. Humanity was fighting a war without weapons, without strategy, only the fragile courage of its collective mind. Elena realized the stakes. If the dream space was lost, the waking world would follow. Entire populations could be assimilated, becoming conduits for the being's consciousness. And if that happened, there would be no way to reverse it. Then came a breakthrough. By linking the neural resonance devices across multiple cities, Elena and her team created the first coordinated human anchor, a fixed zone of stability in the dreamscape. Within it, dreamers could resist alien influence and even push back. The beings attacked immediately, waves of psychic energy crashing against the anchor. But the humans held, using memory, imagination, and sheer willpower as weapons. For a brief moment, the tide seemed to turn. The silver-eyed humans, extensions of the beings, hesitated. The aliens were adaptive, but the humans' unpredictability had created something new, a countermeasure they had not anticipated. Yet victory was fragile. Elena felt the weight of the dream space pressing against her mind. Every time she blinked in the dream, reality seemed to shift, the lab around her flickering like a candle in the wind. She realized the beings were learning from each encounter, evolving strategies even in real time. Humanity's success depended on constant adaptation, vigilance, and sacrifice. As the coordinated anchors expanded, a new possibility emerged. If humans could fully master the dream space, if enough minds could act in unison, perhaps they could reclaim it entirely. But the effort required every ounce of discipline and courage. One slip, one moment of doubt, could undo everything. Elena looked at Jonah and the team, exhaustion etched on every face. "This is only the beginning," she said. "We can push them back, but we have to be faster, stronger, smarter. Every mind counts. The dream space is the battlefield. Humanity will survive there, or we won't survive at all." Outside, cities slept fitfully, the air heavy with unspoken tension. The beings were patient, relentless, and intelligent. But now, humanity was beginning to fight back. The war for dreams had become a war for survival, and the outcome would shape the waking world forever. The final night had arrived. Elena's team, now a network of trained dream warriors across continents, prepared for the ultimate crossing. Cities trembled with shared unrest. Buildings shifted, shadows moved independently, and the air itself seemed thick with anticipation. Humanity's survival depended entirely on what would happen in the dreamscape tonight. Elena lay in the neural resonance pod, Jonah beside her, tethering her mind to his. Around the globe, dozens of pods hummed, each containing a volunteer ready to enter the dream battlefield. The moment they fell asleep, the waking world seemed to hold its breath. The dreamscape erupted around her in impossible splendor and terror. Rivers of liquid light twisted through skies of shifting colors. Mountains floated like shards of crystal. And there they were, the beings, taller and more radiant than ever, their forms flickering with the knowledge of countless minds. Silver-eyed humans moved among them, guardians and scouts of the alien will. Elena projected her anchor, linking every volunteer into a web of concentrated thought. The beings immediately attacked, sending waves of psychic force that tore at the fabric of consciousness. She felt herself pulled toward a void, a swirling black hole of alien thought. Fear clawed at her mind, memories of lost children and vanished friends flashing in her thoughts. "Focus." Jonah's voice echoed in her consciousness. "Remember reality. Remember humanity." Elena clenched her mental focus. She projected the memories of love, hope, courage, every human experience she could summon, like a shield of light. The alien waves struck it and faltered. The beings hesitated, unsure, their forms flickering in confusion. The silver-eyed humans advanced, trying to sever the anchors, but the collective human network held firm. Volunteers projected themselves into defensive patterns, using imagination and memory as weapons. Rivers of liquid light became walls. Mountains became barriers. The dreamscape itself bent under the humans' control, responding to focus and willpower. Elena realized something crucial. The beings thrived on fear and doubt. Every time a human wavered, every moment of hesitation, the aliens gained ground. But if humanity acted in unity, if they projected determination and hope together, the aliens could be pushed back. She concentrated, projecting herself forward, her consciousness blazing with intent. Around her, the team followed, creating a path through the alien ranks. They reached the heart of the dream space, a towering spire of light and shadow, the core of the being's influence. One by one, the dream warriors attacked, collapsing sections of the spire with sheer mental force. The beings reacted violently, waves of energy pulsing outward. Entire dreamscapes shifted, threatening to consume the dreamers. Elena's mind screamed in exhaustion, but she pressed on, anchoring herself to Jonah, to the waking world, and to the countless humans depending on her. Finally, at the spire's apex, she confronted the largest being, radiant and vast, its presence overwhelming. It spoke directly into her mind, a chorus of voices echoing together. "You cannot stop us. We are eternal. We are inevitable." "I do not accept inevitability," Elena projected back. "We are human. We dream, we hope, we fight. That is our strength." A blinding pulse of light radiated from her mind, spreading through the network of anchors. The spire trembled, its structure cracking. The silver-eyed humans faltered, the alien forms flickered, and the dream space itself began to realign. Waves of light spread through the dreamscape, dissolving darkness, restoring balance. When Elena awoke, she found herself back in the lab. Jonah was beside her, exhausted but alive. Around them, the monitors stabilized, showing normal neural readings. Across the globe, reports came in. People slept peacefully, no one vanished, and the shadows that had moved independently retreated. The invasion had been pushed back, for now. The cost was high. Some dream warriors never returned. Those who did were forever changed, carrying faint traces of alien perception in their minds. But humanity had survived, and the beings had been forced to retreat into the boundaries of dreams, unable to fully cross into the waking world. Elena looked out at the city, the streets still trembling faintly with residual energy. The night was quiet, almost ordinary, but she knew better. The beings were patient. They were intelligent. They would return. But humanity had learned something crucial. The dreamscape was no longer a place of fear alone. It was a battlefield. And humans had the power to fight back, to protect their reality, and to shape their own fate. Elena whispered to herself as she watched the first light of dawn. "We will dream. And we will be ready." The war for dreams was not over, but for the first time, humanity had hope.